I
What do
do.
you want?
Both kids are off school as well, so it's just like, yeah,
Oh,
fuck it. Let's go for it.
excuse me?
Well,
No.
success.
What do you
is
say?
the story? Why are you
No.
flat out trying to feed my
No.
dog? What?
I'm not gonna give you a
You're
treat
gonna
if
make
you
her
call
fat.
me that.
Although I think the
What do you
camera, we
say?
can actually see it today.
Please.
What time? But I was kind of raging because I was really getting under it. Daytime late, that's right. Yeah, so, Flange, Ben, what's happened? What is this? Yeah, so last night, oh, she's eating her crack. Yeah, when people sing in Gaelic and dance in circles, surrounded by the ruins of their ancestors. Yeah, so crack is C-R-A-I-C. It's Irish. It's what Irish people say when we're saying, you know, what's happening, what's the story, what's the news, you know. Yeah, it's a greeting. You would also say it if you were talking about like an event that happened and it was great. You'd say, "Oh, that was some crack." And there's sometimes issues when people, that word. There's sometimes people issues, especially with Americans, when you say, "Oh, it was great crack last night," and they were like, "Okay," and you go, "No, crack. Listen, banter." Balls to your house, and you're eating your dinner. You'll say to someone, "I was sitting in the middle of my dinner." If you traverse down the street, I was sitting walking down the street. There's a lot of Northern Irelandisms which make zero sense. There's your alliteration, surely. It should be Cracking Craig. And that's why Craig calls himself Crack, because he's not like the other Craigs. He's a cool Craig, yeah! Yeah, he is. I know one Craig worked in a bar. He was a good barman, therefore cool Craig. I think we should notify all the Craigs, get them together. CraigCon, and we'll differentiate and give them labels whether they're good or crap Craigs. And same problem, I go from west to east coast, just the slang. Because we have circular tables with a hole in the middle and surrounded by food, hence sitting in the middle of your dinner. That's it. I don't like it when I stop my car to let someone pass and they don't give me the wee wave. I think it should be illegal. They should get fined if they don't give the wee wave. You wrap her up in a big bag. Couldn't tell who they are, but their sound if they salute. That's it. Now then, really, is a greeting. Like Simshay said, it depends on the context of the person. Right? Okay, we're all learning. We should do a spreadsheet with us. They don't wave equals prick. It does. Especially when you because there's a lot of small like one width lanes and roads in Ireland, and you get to pull onto the side to let people pass. And if they don't wave, oh, look at the profile pic. Oh Jesus. What's it going to be? Oh, Jesus. Ready in a mustache. Excellent. I mocked it the other day. Bought his wife a cheese board. I read that as I sit on my wife every day. We sit side by side playing games. I sit with my wife every day. Right, okay.
I can't believe you're alive.
She could have walked that. She could have wore the poncho to stop the rain. What is the crack? How are we getting on? Foxtrot, Boychi, what's the story? Steam Train, welcome on, straight on there with the blitz. What is happening? I have just spent the past hour fighting with TikTok and cracking up with.
Works
Oh,
another
excuse me?
Northern Irish streamer. Really funny,
No.
really cool.
What do you say?
Really funny and really cool.
No.
See, he said it.
I'm not going to give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please.
Good man, Sam, Mr. Worldwide, welcome.
Please.
What is happening? Well, my doggo isn't actually there at the moment. Cleo! I thought I'd do a funny video, a funny TikTok where I show like an epic moment from Crimson Desert and then cut to me just ignoring the main storyline and messing about with dogs and cats. And every time I try to put the Lord of the Rings theme for the very, very start, so it's really cool and epic. And I've done it through TikTok, and they still kept muting the video. They're all know it's copyrighted.
We're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
Here, babe. Here. She doesn't want her treat. There she goes. It's just fucking joke. Absolute joke. But what's the story, folks? I thought it'll be a funny video. It'll be like 5 seconds of Lord of the Rings, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna mute the whole thing now. Blech. And it's got to redo it then afterwards, I suppose. I did it like 3 times, and still every time they kept muting it. I'm like, rawr. There she goes. She's munching her retreat now. You happy? You happy, Flim Flam Bamlan?
Do it, lady.
Sierra, what's happening? Sierra, you are fucking absolutely right. 50 stream stick as well. I'm just seeing it. Happy Irish, you do. You and Sierra both equally love me more than Flemish. I'm not happy. You are not happy, that is true. We heard you go on that massive rant about Terminator earlier. You were not happy about the film at all. And Resident Evil 6. And about 28 other things. It's the best way. Flemish is never happy. I think he's happy to not be happy. I think if you put him in a state of complete joy and contentment, he would explode and die. He was not happy at the mention of Terminator. Now, because of Flemish, that word is now banned in my chat, so it didn't even show up. Dear God, can you imagine losing a New York watch streak? Well, to be fair, McKinnon's did the same thing. But yeah, had a daytime stream yesterday, and it was fucking class. It was really, really good. But I do think you're cool and funny. I know. Well, you do. That is true. I do have audio of you saying that. I did record that. 100%. And I played to myself, like, on repeat every single night. That puts me to sleep now. It makes me happy. Makes me happy. Had to make a coffee, came back, and you turned into Vez? Isn't Vez such an improvement? What? I was chatting to Hook about this the other day. We met Vez through Premix. He's lovely, lovely fella, but his energy's fucking class. Like, he's so welcoming and nice. He has hair and he's nice and pleasant. He's like a vast improvement to me in every way. Hook, what is happening? Yeah, I love Vez, such a dope. Yeah. Hook, what is the story? I was just giving off there about my TikToks and the fact I had to upload that video like 3 times, and I was putting the music on through TikTok. There's a bit you can go in and add music, and I went, Lord of the Rings, like that. Put it on for like 7 seconds, and it's like, can't do that, copyright music. And I was like, but you gave me the music. It was your fault. How dare you? Oh, thank you for doing a shout out for Vez. Yeah, so we raided Vez yesterday, and he's a lovely, lovely fella. Plays a lot of Souls games and stuff as well. But just really, really good energy, really, really nice fella. Not like me. He's a vast improvement of me. Actually, see if he's streaming now, don't watch me, go watch Vez. Vez is much better. Actually, I might just watch Vez instead of watching me. But yeah, it was a good day, so I enjoyed it. Now, we finished up Death Stranding in a bit where I couldn't get across the river in my car, and I fucked it up. And then I was thinking in my head, how the hell am I going to get this car down to that farm? So I'm going to have to risk it for the biscuit tonight. I've done it in the motorbike, I've never done it in the car, so I might have to go the long way around. I have 45 minutes to do it. TikTok hates you. I know, not the first time I saw that to you. I know, but it's weird when you add the audio through TikTok. It's not like I'm uploading audio myself. You click on the bit where you add its own audio, and it still fucks you. And do you know what the worst part is? We hear the worst part. YouTube accepted it. YouTube was grand. YouTube was like, oh, we see Lord of the Rings is on here, but because it's under 10 seconds, it doesn't infringe on the short copyright, so you're sweet. And I was like, YouTube is fine. YouTube's normally the really strict one. Build a Peace Bridge. Peace Bridge is class. Don't you dare slag off our Peace Bridge. Even though hooligans keep coming over and breaking the glass. It's a bridge of peace between one side of the community and the other that brought peace. How dare you, sir? How dare you? To be fair, I was also happy with the mention of Terminator. That's true. It's true. It was wild funny. It was wild funny because you could see him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to bite. I'm not going to bite." And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, "The storyline Terminator." And I wasn't even listening to what he was saying. I was just laughing away to myself. It was just so entertaining watching Flemish crack up. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. And I know that Sierra then has to listen to him for the rest of the night, but that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to let you take. I would bite in small bits and then turn into a really big rant. You went on for like half an hour about it though. Like you proper went on a rant about it. No. And I was just going in the chat GPT and saying, right, this is what he said. What would you say back? And it was like, oh, fire this. And I was like, happy days. And Big Boss knew immediately. He seen the word paradox and he's all, you have never used the word paradox in your fucking life. What? Using chat GPT? And I was like, fucking right. He's still going on. But I can't hear him, so it's grand. Big Ultimate, what is happening? What's the story? How's your bank holiday weekend going so far? Oh, yeah. So I'm really enjoying Death Stranding. I did my thing though, where I typed it on the AI and said like, how, without spoilers, how many streams do I have left? And it's like, you have between 7 and 10 streams left. And I was like, nice. Get a good chunk of game time left. Because I was worried about maybe I'm coming up near the end. I don't know. No idea. All good. All good. Happy days. Happy days. There's a bit of a change in the weather today as well. It's bucketing down. Bucketing down. And yeah, you got a fuckload left. Nice. I'm happy about that. Because I'm enjoying it. It's still nice hearing Banger. Banger? Didn't even know her. But I had a funny wee interaction there now as well. Earlier on this morning, I went to the shop and got stuff from the hot food deli, and I got buns and stuff and cakes, just to have, just to have a bit of a lunch, bit of a breakfast. And everybody came down and got their own. And the rule is, I think the legal law is that if you buy buns, and Hook will back me up on this one, if you buy buns and everyone else has got the buns that they want, as the dad, the rest of the buns are then yours. So I just mauled the rest of them, and then he came on there now, and he's all, I had all the buns. Where'd the rest of the buns go? And I was like, I bought them, motherfucker. They're mine. My buns. You buy 7. I bought 7. Was there a massive flood? I think there was flooding up in the walls in Derry, but I don't think there was nothing really down here. Here was fine. Wrecked them, damn near killed them. What? You talking about your bum again? Were there any of my fingers? And were they buttered? No, there was turnovers. There was unbuttered turnovers. We don't butter turnover in our house. We're not like Hook. He cuts it in half like a fucking pleb and butters inside of them. Dad buns and puns. That's a podcast right there. It's a fucking podcast name right there. Dad buns and puns. Yes. Flooding here was bad. Oh, so down by you was quite bad. See, we're down by the coast, so everything just flows onto the sea anyway, so we're grand. But, no, it was turnovers, muffins, and cinnamon rolls. And then there was all like sausages and sausage rolls and stuff. I did eat loads as well, and I felt really, really awful afterwards, but I was like, meh, they're mine. I paid for them. We was 15 now as well, so there's times like we'll just walk around the house looking for stuff. No, get a job. Get a job. Yeah. Freeloader. Right, so, gotta get into the game now. Well, I keep forgetting it's Saturday night as well. I think it's because it's the bank holiday. Kind of throws me.
We're going streaking!
Oh, Joey, what's happening? 10 stream streak.
Come on, everybody!
Amazing. You clearly love me more than Flemish does. Because Flemish hates me. We're in this spot.
Proceed to Mama's lab. Mama was part of the Cupid
Mama, where's my truck?
She had concerns about its long-term viability. Felt Cupids had fundamental flaws, which might
Let's use shotgun, take you. Blood bag, take you. Handgun, take you. I'm actually going to fire a lot of these in storage in case I'll get stuck again and I have to walk. Empty, assault rifle, specialist alloys, grenade. Oh no, I looked at the wrong thing. Fuck it. Repair container, grenade. Big bear jokes and I won't hit you. I think you still would. It goes well. Happy Saturday. Thank you very much. Straight in, no kissing.
7 minutes.
Here we go.
7 minutes is all I can
was.
spare to play with you.
He makes better jokes the higher streak is. That's it is. It's all currency based. So let's fire a lot of this stuff in. Master gun, I'll take that. Grenade, sticky gun, I'll need that. Tool rack, shotgun. Right, we'll get rid of them. Place in private locker.
Thanks for the sub!
BK Ultima, thank you for gifting the sub. The Foodman Sam as well. One legend meeting another. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Very well delayed. How's things? 7 minutes. 7 minutes for it to go off. That's awesome, thank you. Had a high streak for you once, and then I took an hour to an E. That is true. How did you lose that anyway? Was it just shenanigans of Twitch because it's happened to me before as well with them. But we're pretty light on our feet now, which is good. We're going to take our truck.
Beginning scan. Have a pleasant journey.
We're going to try going around the long way as much as possible. You didn't. You had too many stream tabs open to watch our lovely dog didn't count, Sierra, and I know that you just had me open, and that's why. See, loyalty right there. Time for some Battlefield 6. Ooh, battle on them fields. Farming Simulator as well as a battlefield. Used to love the orc as much as Sierra. This is what we keep saying. This is what we keep saying. Happy Irish and Sierra love me more than Flemish does. And it saddens me. Breaks my heart. You broke my heart. This one using mod view, sadly. Yeah, I learned the hard way with mod view because I would have kept like mic and hooking everybody open with mod view, and I've lost them before with that. Even though you're there for the entire stream, and sometimes you might just have that stream open, but Twitch just is all about the shenanigans. Because I don't think I missed the streams to find you. No, I don't think you have. I think you've at least called in for every one of them, even if you were at a fucking wedding or something, you at least call in. Sure, it's the same as that thing happened the other night as well, where all the fucking Irish streamers got kicked off. You would have called in during our wedding if you could. I think you would. And now as part of the ceremony, where Flemish is going to check in and get a stream streak in everybody's Twitch. I always thought it would be funny, and I've never seen anybody do it, but if they stop the ceremony, and this is the part now where the bride and groom will update their Facebook relationship status to married, and everyone go, oh, do we clap? Do we clap? Just make sure I'm going the right direction. Ooh, I've kind of gone on wide berth on that one. That didn't get me. I have to turn the volume up on my end. Doing my vows and doing that to me. You bastard. Enemy scanner. I did it. I did the thing. They don't know I'm here. I'm stealthy. Gotta say, I love Oswald camera off to the side. Which, did you buy the Oddsbot? After all the grief I give you, you still went and bought it? My god, man. For me, I mean. Of course I fucking did. Of course I did. My god. You have the self-control of a cheese sandwich. You have a better camera, and you bought another one just because. I wish I had a disposable income, hey. Even a cheese sandwich with some I know it knows not to be a ham sandwich. The Flemish is like, nope. I was wondering what that was. I have a fan on beside me. It was a bit warm in here earlier, so it was blowing hot air at me, and I was wondering, my arm hairs were tickling. Oh, how long on it? How long on it? Fucking on it. Am I even going to be able to cross here? I wanted 2 nice cameras. Yes, because 1 is enough. Well, it wasn't going to be your head hair tickling. Bald oppressionist. Do you know? Hey, it's here. I was just sexually assaulted there now. Because now in HR protocol, to give somebody grief or degrade them for being bald is deemed a nice sexual assault. There you go. There you go. Are you secretly very rich? I think he is. He's a secret millionaire. If he is, he hasn't told me. Although I can't say anything. My hairdryer went on fire on Thursday, so bought me a Dyson one when the regular 50 quid one would have done. He is way goodie for the grief we give him. I don't think I'm getting across there. I'm going to have to find another way. Oh, we could get a wee charge here before we go. I think this might have to be my way across. Yeah, we did it. We did it. I thought the grief of the cheese board. I bought her Diablo on stream earlier. I know, that's what I'm saying. You are way good there. We do give you grief, but it's out of love. You didn't buy me that. I mean, he didn't buy the hairdryer. Oh no, fuck you then, Plumage. No, you're dick. You son of a bitch. Diablo doesn't dry hair, does it? Does it? Does it? Well, I suppose we put the specs way, way up, and you stuck your head next to the actual heat outtake on the PC. It would dry your hair. I wouldn't know. I don't have hair to dry. This whole conversation is very discriminatory towards me. Can't win. Can't win. Man's living a second life. I can't because I also bought our coffee machine. That was fucking ages ago. Fucking ages ago you bought our coffee machine. Riku, what's happening? Evening? I'm on the lurk again. I'm on the lurk again. When you contacted me about getting the streamer bot set up? Eh? 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 I'm making noises. What? Who's been giving Flamash grief? No one, ever. He doesn't need to buy me anything, though. He does. He 100% does. Check out my buddy Riku. Recently started streaming. Made a affiliate. Absolutely smashing it. Playing some Kingdom Hearts. I think you finished it the other day as well. You're part of the problem, for fuck's sake. How dare you? How dare you blame Happy Irish? He's both happy and Irish at all times. He wants what's best for you, and in his opinion, playing Monster Hunter is what's best for you. Right. I think now I have a better chance of getting across to the other side. And then he crashes. I also should be fucking light enough that if I do have to abandon the car, I can actually lift the stuff and take it with me. I'll do Space Marine 2 with him. Final offer. What? What? What are we talking about? You leave him alone. You leave him alone. Happy Irish is a special little boy. I've been way too busy. I haven't quite finished it. Got stuck in a death loop tomorrow. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll get it done tomorrow. We're finished. We'll absolutely play that with him. You should. You should. He came in and helped me kill a boss once because I was really struggling with it on stream. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Yeah, I knew it was gonna happen. Can't park out there, mate.
Still got it.
Still got it. I got Space Marine 2 and Space. Is it cross? I think it is. It's very good. It's very good. You're willing to give it another chance. Gonna lurk, mate. Tomahawk, thank you very much for the lurk. Yes, Warhammer Space Marine 2. Jesus, fucking essay. Right, hold on. Yes, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is full crossplay between... Oh, Jesus, copy and paste that. Right, okay. It's not too bad. I thought you wrote that out. Fucking brackets and everything. I'm starting to see problems with my decision to do this. How dare you die from my own memory? Yeah, I've seen your wee notepad. But it says that my thing, but it's not. It's somebody else's. I do need a trace which was a PC. Actually, why would you were playing on console, were you? It's very, very good. Very, very good game. I don't think I ever finished it though. I got a good chunk on it. I think it would be better if I played it on co-op. Yes, it was the other side of that river was where we got stuck last time, and we got across it. We just fucking brute force niggered it across it. No, I played it on my old PC. Which PC was that? Because they change every week. I do laugh at the fact that you give off about me changing my background and stuff in streaming when you change your PC every 3 seconds. Do you order a new PC whenever the newest one arrives? Do you order the next one? That was my theory as well, that you have actually bought the house next door. You've put holes in the wall to run cables through, and you actually have several PCs that fix all your PC issues. He's ordering his new one now. Is he actually? Is he actually ordering a new PC? I know we joke about it, but he isn't actually, is he? Gotta have them on rotation. In case they go out of it, in case they go bad. They're like bread. So, night to myself, placed order for pizza. Chose thin crust. They cancelled with no reason, then phoned to ask why. They said, we have no thin crust left. Surely, it's just the... Yeah, surely it's just the way you make it. No, he's not. Oh, right, okay. I was going to say, surely just another few seconds of effort. I'm going to go do one of this bite. No, because if you start looking, you'll actually talk yourself into buying one. It's insane how easily... What's the word? Led you are? No, it's not even led. Bye-bye, ladder. Fuck you, ladder. Exactly. And pause this way for a second, then fuck me. What did they say when you said them? Just flatten the dough a wee bit? It's probably because... was it Domino's? Like... no, because there's just all actual balls of dough as well, so it's not even like... It's like a pre-made base. They have no thin crusts left. It's the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's like, you phone up a chippy and you're kind of a bag of chips, and they're all what size? Small. We only have large bags of chips left. Can't do small. I take it, yeah, well that's true, you've gone down your own path yourself. Although I was chatting to Hook and Ruddy about the other day, and we do like your whole thing now that you've simplified the stream. It's kind of a good idea because we're chatting about Meld and all the AI nonsense that it's doing. And we were like, if everybody's is just going to look like that, it's probably better just to simplify and just focus on the quality of the stream rather than the jiggery pokery and the shenanigans. Our ending does chips, but they have an option for large chips, but there's no option for small chips. It's just large. No small. Talking about me, I'm talking about you. Went for the kiss, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I was actually paying you a compliment. I was saying something nice about you. Flamish. We're talking about Flamish. Flamish. The other guy. There's still things I'm tempted to remove. Yeah, because it was Pogs came in earlier and he was asking about one of the redeems, and you were like, no, I just wanted to simplify it, and I was all, yeah, it's probably a good idea. I did that with my overlay. Like, I used to have very, very complex and convoluted overlays, so now it's just gameplay, camera, and then stuff swings on from the side, and that's it. Cowboy PTSD. Oh, Jesus, that's wild loud. It's wild loud. I refuse to remove because it's hilarious to me. Well, I suppose if it entertains you. I do tend to mute your tab when it comes on. I'm like, oh. I think we're doing alright. I think we're doing alright. Don't blame you. There was on someone's stream and the other week, and there was so much happening. I didn't know where to look. And yeah, I know for a while it was the thing to have. You know, I just have it me just chatting screen, but like latest follower, latest subscriber, and just loads of stuff all over the screen. But I can find it. I can be well distracted from the actual gameplay then. That's why your face is on my dartboard. Is on my dartboard. Just on my pillow, so as I don't hate you. What? What are we talking about? But I've got only 2 redeems. Yeah, it's probably wise. Probably wise. I love the fact I can count that, but they can physically see me now as well, which is not good. Pum, 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 pum. I love the daytime streams, you know. I do enjoy them. They're good crack. Oh, fuck. Motherfucker's shooting at me now. Whoa! You son of a bitch. I have my Mauser, yeah. Can my car stop being electrocuted? That would be great. sir. I think I was just electrocuting my own car now at this stage. Oh no, we're fine. Okay, I think I'll get away now. Their car's fucked. Haha! Wait, I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm fucking gone. Fuckies. Fuckies. Dickheads. Oh, one was here, one was here, one was here. Jesus, loads of shit. You skimmed the message and then got confused. Sounds just about like me. Then you throw a free one in now and then if you ask do nicely. What's this? Oh, it's just for the cowboy. I don't think Cook will ever ask for that. I don't think you have to worry about that. Actually, a lot of it when you come to voting because, oh, brilliant, I can do redeems now. Yeah, there is that. And you see all the things you want to put on. Hook does a good thing every now and again where he starts to look at how often things are redeemed and then starts to recycle and get rid of ones that people don't reuse very much. So you add all these sound alerts and shit and then you discover add-ons and then you add cool things. I did an add-on once. It was like a squidgy hammer and stuff and nobody used them. Nope. So you just get rid of them. You just try and simplify it then. And then you discover StreamerBot and go nuts with that. Yeah. Like I have stuff on StreamerBot. I don't even remember it's there. And if somebody did the command for it, it'll probably just show up. Which is really, hang on. What happened to chatting and playing the game? Exactly. Fuck's sake, I'm agreeing with Flemish.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. Cargo verified.
There we go, we made it. Yo, I don't want to get it. I want to open the cargo. Get out. Get out. Get out. Sam. Get out. Yeah, we made it in 15 minutes. It's not too bad at all. It was definitely a case of fucking just leave everything else behind. It'd be good if you two came in and give me a hand as well. You can see him struggle on with the stuff. Oh, so it was a minimum of one. I didn't have to bring all of them. Oh, fuck it, we did it.
Delivering cargo.
Always a pleasure, Sam. Was it a rough trip this time?
Nice timing. We had a hunch you were about to arrive.
Was it the explosions and the electric shock attacks going off in the distance that normally gives it away, like? Ooh, only A rank? What the fuck? I mean A rank? I got everything here. Like super quick. Master Mover. Cool beans.
Well, don't be a stranger.
My antisocial tendencies means I will be a stranger.
Please access delivery terminal.
The house stuff? The make a delivery with? Ceramics, there we go. I don't have ceramics. Is that the stuff that was outside?
Delivering cargo.
Yeah, I think it was. Ooh, it's beer. And it says here Transformer units. I don't think it's actual Transformers. I think it's bullshit. I think they're lying to me. That's a very short one though, which is right up there and back. I did kind of shoot and zap a whole pile of them. Fresh, fluffy. Why is the bread fluffy? Fuck. That one seems a lot better. Sorry, I was doing things. I need to finish my thoughts here. Yeah, sometimes I think streams... Oh, so yeah, but sometimes I think streaming is funny because you get as much as you want to improve things, but to try and be as authentic to you. There's that, and there's only so much you can improve before you make it incredibly convoluted. Because you can make, like I've seen people with like some really, really cool games and stuff, but it can then like overwhelm chat. Got a bit lost with this time. No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Let me charge this.
Weapons restrictions lifted.
But yeah, that can be a worry. Just that you make things too complicated, and it doesn't bear anything as to what you wanted to actually make at the very start. But I suppose as well, it's each to their own preference, and each to their own audience as well. So whatever. There's stuff that I wouldn't have in mind, and other people do, but like their community love it, so fair play. Yeah, I love that chat for much of him, but it would too often would break my train of thought, or drop me mid-sentence, which is the purpose. Someone asked, what do you say? Ah, but that was the purpose of people doing it, so it did do that. Hang on, where am I going for this? What? Right, so it's kind of stuff in this area, is it? Right, repair materials. Is it just here, though? Is it just the one? I'll get out. So, I mean, just make sure I think... Yeah, yeah. No, there's more over there. Cool. Any further up? No. And there's Cairo crystals up here. I'm going to get these first before doing anything. Yeah, fast I can go now with no equipment on me. Part of my issue as well is there's times I will have an idea for something, but it's not actually something I really want for my stream. It's just something I figure it's kind of cool. And then I feel like I kind of have to implement it just because I made it. Ooh, where's that from the gapper? Right, okay. Sam fell down.
Seriously?
Then there's other stuff I've made. I'm like, oh, that would make a really cool video for the YouTube website. And then realize how convoluted it actually was to make. And I was like, how do we explain this in such a way that's not like a 17-hour long video? Because there's times that me and Hook will make stuff and be on the... We'll be able to explain it to each other on the basis that we've already done a lot of the other bits leading up to it. Like installed StreamerBot and did move source and things like that. Although, Flemish, I tell you what, the fact that you're now facing your camera makes, or facing your gameplay makes me so much happy. Oh, there's more up there, right? Okay. It's a bit of everywhere. Right, okay, well, we got the furthest ones first. I always wanted it, but my old desk didn't really allow it. Yeah. I just flip this source and that's it. But there's times then I'm trying to do something and I'm like, oh, which hand am I actually showing up with on camera? Actually, something pops up and I'm like, oh, look at... No, it's right up here. Oh, someone made a wee ladder for me. Nicely job. Thank you. Who's this? Moki Taro? Ooh. New one does, and I have a second cam for the chat screen. Yeah, I did see that. I flipped around. That is cool. Oh. That's an unusual way to climb down ladders, but okay. There's Fragile just standing waving at me. I want a bit of a reinvent. I was saying to the arc, but narrowing that down is tough in my head. These chats about setups, I seriously enjoy. I'm the same. I like your setup, and I think your setup really, really works, but I get what you mean as well. You want to kind of refresh it and do something new with it. I was thinking about it not that long ago, and I was like, no, I don't mind the way I have the really simple kind of look now. Because it works well for if I'm doing shorts or things on TikTok. It means there's not too much happening on screen where I have to worry about what bit I'm cropping. I can just go, right, this bit's gameplay, this bit's camera, done. Easy. Like I said, just, I just went nuts calling things on mine, and 2 things I'm debating about removing. Yeah, I do love them. Made it entirely in OBS, all plugins. Yeah, yeah. And it works. Todd Howard would just say it just works. I think I have everything for this one. Right, so the car only shoots out in front of you. You have to be outside of the car to get them all around. Right, okay. Okay.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID.
But I am kind of a bit dubious about the AI one.
Cargo verified. Thank you.
About what way that's going to work, or is everybody's setup just going to look the exact same now? Like, I enjoy seeing people's setups as well. I'm thinking, God, that looks really cool. I might do something somewhere. Or, you know, I wonder how they did that and then trying to figure it out. Yeah, you're right. You give me that fucking S tier. Have they given me loads of stuff? I could probably build some more roads.
Oh, before I forget.
He's giving me ceramics. Lightweight ceramics? Oh, take that. Yes, sir.
Take care of yourself, Sam.
Good work.
Well, but I have no idea what I want to do.
Please access delivery terminal for further
Now,
information.
I would definitely use AI for that, and just start to get ideas of things that go on. So, like, give me 10 things along this way of thinking, and then you could start kind of breaking it down. Do like a brainstorming session with it. Anything null niggle in the back of your head? That's her husband. Right, so I don't think any of these are main story quests, are they? No, I have no orders for Sam. Minus Sam. But anything going back... Yeah, I can have stuff going back there. Should I see if I can build a bridge? Now, I'm going to take a wee trip up here and just see if there's a bridgeable location. It'll take me ages to work out. For the record, I have to say, I do love these two. While sounding good folks. And that's why we give the grief. That's why I give you grief as well, Hook, for being really, really tall. He's 7'3". The gaming god. That's right. He's got a dead body. It's Hook. And you started something with that book you sent me. What book? What book? What are we talking about? What book? Oh god, that caught me off guard. Full cackle after that. The song? You just give him grief. Aye, but he gives me grief too, so it's fine. But it's if somebody external came in and gave him grief, you'd be like, what the fuck are you at? What are you playing at? I'm indifferent. But pictures of everyone's pets. That's right, you do have you have the random pet that comes up. That's quite cool. I do like that. Needs more Cleo though. Right. Can't see a bridge point here. Could just grab that stuff and go back to the main kind of depot. I'd be happy with more Cleo picks. I know. We all would. We all would. To be fair though, I keep getting distracted. In Crimson Desert, there are cats, dogs, and birds that you can befriend, and they can become your pet and kind of come along with you. And part of the issue is, or to get them, you have to raise their trust to 100, and you can pet them and bring it up 25 per day. You can give them food and stuff. But now it's completely distracted me from the actual storyline. It's all like, oh, this is happening, these guys are bad and we're good and you have to save these people. I'm like, no, go pet dogs. We go pet the dogs and that'll do it. That'll do it. It's like Gwent in The Witcher. You just keep getting distracted by it and you're like, meh. You could usually tell them, oh, I would say so.
Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
I'm a different, no, you're special, it's a different thing. Oh, I give him grief. Look at him giving grief. Right, so I'm going to do the one, is it the beer? Yeah. I'm going to take that. I don't want to do the rest of them, I don't think. Because they're kind of out of my way a wee bit. Just go take the beer. Thanks for the short joke on Layer Extreme last night. I don't remember that one. Which one? I think there are many. Look at him now, trying to act the big man. Grief equals affection. It is the Irish way. This is true. So I have beer with me now. Keep on keeping out. They still up there? No, they've been repaired. There's some bitches. It's weird that the... It's weird that the mules don't go as far as, you know, they don't go into the actual NPC areas. And I know they probably do, they probably storyline-wise they do, but in the game they just stay away from it. Like, there's no guns or anything, there's no defenses. There's nothing to stop them. Actually, I shouldn't say it out loud, because then they might start doing it. I may or may not have just bought Crimson Desert. Do it. Do you want to see me wee video on it? Do you want to see me wee video on it? Made this earlier and enjoyed it. Add source. Media. Do. I think this is it. I'll turn that off because I don't have audio for it. Or maybe I do. Do I have audio for it? Did I show up? I'm not that. I just can't hear it. There's your doggo. Animals are the main story in that game. That's 100% true. That's fact. Fact. You've gotten real deep. You're right. But midlife crisis. Oh, 100% midlife crisis. I think one thing a lot of people forget about streaming is what makes their stream unique. What makes it, you know, simpatico. I've always been quite deep, just interspersed with curse words and inappropriate jokes. Have you been deep, though? Have you been deep? And when he's really angry, he can't even get his words out. I've seen that. I've seen that as well, when he gets flummoxed. When he gets flummoxed. That's the word for if you get really, really thrown off and start getting irate. You're flummoxed. It starts a word and doesn't finish them. I've seen him getting frustrated. Is this a different sort of anger? I don't know if I've seen this one, but I kind of want to now. What would you have to do to get him that angry, though? Like, what's the strategy? Like, if I came over and, I don't know, stole all his chili and sauces, would that frustrate him enough that he'd get that angry? Get his mum to phone. Excellent. You send me her number and I'll get it arranged. I'll have her phone him on stream. That would get me angry, actually. The sauces or your mum phone him? Or both? I could give your sauces to your mum so you have to phone her to get them back. There we go. Genius! We figured it out. Looks like a giant causeway. It is. I think some parts of it are actually based on it. I only ever went to the Giant's Causeway like a couple of years ago. I am pressing backwards and you're going forwards, so that makes no sense. I do need to recharge though, and I don't see a charge. There's just one over there. But should I just go across? This isn't going to charge me, this is just going to make sure I don't use anything whilst on it. I'm just messing, but it says like people who curse are more intelligent according to random. This is true because I curse as well, so I agree with it. But it's like I get annoyed and I want to say, what in the name of God is that nonsense? And it comes out just, definitely not intelligent. So you're Homer. Otherwise I'd fix my PC instead of buying new ones. You could convince yourself, you could trick yourself into thinking you have no money. And then you have to fix your PC instead of buying new ones. Anyhow. Yeah. He's just talking shit out here. He is. Talking all that fucking shit. Way back over to the other side again, but I'm hoping to try and find... There's a charger over there. I don't want to go down to that one. I'm hoping there's another one kind of close. Looks like there's one over there. Truck's batteries... Your truck's battery's almost out. Yeah, this is one we're going for. Let's go! You were saying you loved the day streams earlier? ADHD. Oh, we all have the tism. I'm really enjoying them, but I don't want to do them too often. It'll kind of ruin the novelty of it. Enjoy the night ones too, but day ones always seem a bit different. I think it's because there's a lot more people who normally can't make it on the streams. that get to show up, and it's really cool seeing them. A class that Friday and Sunday morning for the first year streaming, Tuesday nights. That's right, that's how you met all your streaming buddies. Battery fully charged. Let's go. Can I get back across the bridge? Or have I fucked myself? Yeah, so the daytime one was actually class. And I've done a couple of them now. But the only issue I have is I have to take time off work to do it because I work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And then the weekends are normally busy doing stuff. But it kind of is handy to do because like the kids and stuff aren't in the house. Norman, your attitude isn't helping. Fuck up, we're going down this way, we're going down this way, we'll go this way. Don't tap, don't tap, don't tap, don't tap. Can't these vehicles jump? They can. But it's not very much, it's just a wee tiny hop. Tiny hop. Ads upcoming. Let them go. Oh shit, right over there is shenanigans. Up there is where I'm going. Back on the chiral network. I'm no longer on it. I am now though. I'll go here, I am. There's someone in there. I probably have to connect with them. Oh, and there's the road. Lethal business. But I hate when we're close. I'm the same whenever, like, some mic or someone's doing it, or Kai's doing daytime stream, and I can't actually sit and chill and listen to everything because work happens. If I'm busy doing, like, just a task, it's fine. I can just listen and batter away. Oh, sounds like it's about to start a song.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID.
Go and move the things.
All weapons will be locked.
Just move your ballards out of my way.
Contaminating suit. All clear.
Yeah, I think we all need to equally win the lottery so we don't have to anymore. We can just sit and spend time on Twitch. So many in the past. I could engage in a lot, but not in the workday you can't. I know. Stream yesterday was interrupted. Yeah. Jesus, pick up the ticket. No! I was interrupted by a parent just called me to ask me if it was okay for him to pick up a ticket. Making this work for a living. I know. Why dare they?
Everything all right?
I find it funny sometimes. I'm a supervisor at work, and I sometimes get people phoning me, my team, and they're all, "Oh, sorry to bother you. Can I ask you this?" And you're all, "Yes, that is my job to answer your questions. Don't worry about it." The ones that annoy me is whenever I'm stuck in shitty meetings that I don't want to go to, and they keep making me go to them. And it's meetings that are way above my pay grade for stuff I'm not even allowed to make decisions on, and I'm like, why am I even here? And one person team in particular who overcomplicates everything. Is that person you?
Access delivery terminal for further information.
They're sitting there going, the weenus and the flux capacitor are both out of whack. He's all, just buy a new PC. It's fine. Grand, that's what we'll do. I think, wait, don't want, well, I'll go to the phone director and deliver that, I suppose. And then make my way south, because I'm assuming that's where my next mission's going to be, because that's kind of where that one was. Hey, when you go to ask someone a yes or no question, they call you, give them the whole spiel. So yes. Oh no. My only godsend at the moment is I have a class we team. You can, nope. Right, so that's what's there, right? So I don't need to do anything there with that. It's like, let that sheet of paper and put it in the shredder, and he's like, right, shall I carry it in my head? But the aircon will blow it off and find an elastic band. Just overly complicate everything. I like to think that's what your job is, to shred pieces of paper, and that's the stuff you deal with. Can I just come work for you? Yes, but it'll be, I assume it'll be a massive drop in wages. Nah, it keeps planes in there.
Order assigned.
That would scare me.
Safe travels. Have a pleasant journey.
Start our own company. You're in charge of PR, PR reviews. Funny thing is, a different person, when they interviewed him, said we didn't want him and had to take him as apprentice. He had no role, and he asked about the key achievements in his current role. What? He has asked about key achievement. He asked you about his key achievements? Part of the reason that the MOT booking system is so shit now. I've been shredding a lot of secure documents that weren't needed anymore. Right, he said, oh, fucking hell. Is it secure documents that have to be kept for legal requirements? HPR coming up. Lovely. Lovely. But what will the company do? What will we make? That's the thing. That's always the thing you have to work out. What do people want, need, or that you can make easier, but also make money on? There's a lot of people who have great ideas, but they don't know how to make it profitable. Again, this is suggested contact. But you have come up? Oh, I'm not even on LinkedIn. I don't think I'm professional enough to be on LinkedIn. They're not bouncing it back at me. Right, okay. Is it because they already see me? Jump! Jump! Oh, how is this actually? Is this actually going to go? Are the wheels holding? The wheels on the bus go round and round? Right there. Might have to fall. No! The fuck is going on? Exactly. I tried to make it over a gap and didn't. Now I'm inside the truck. I might need that. The good thing is I'm down here and they can't get me. That's not how trucks work. You can't park there, mate. That is how they work. You don't understand. You're not in this Amazon delivery life, Hook. Is this the way up? Potentially. That is now. Yay! Picking up loads of ladders, which is nice. Oh, was that a way up? Was that a way up? No. I think over here's how to go up beforehand. I can see a wee ladder up there, so maybe there's like a rope or something somebody's left. Ladder. Nice one. Physics, fake news. Is it though? Is it? Optimus Prime could do it. Norman, how are we getting up here? Oh, there we go. Sweet. Sweet biscuits, let's go. Right, we are going to this guy. Don't know why I lost my balance, but apparently we did. Lost our truck and then our balance. You know what? I might take a wee scoot over to the junk guy because he has normally motorbikes. Run, Norman, run! Motorbike, bike.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear.
Oh, it is fuck all. Hang on. I can just get one down here.
Until departure.
Cool.
Restrictions lifted.
garage. I'm not a huge fan of the long range ones, especially when it comes to motorbikes, because you can't actually put anything on the back end of it. You know, extra parcels and stuff. Wait, I still have that parcel. It wasn't in the truck, was it? No, there it is there. Whew. That would have been embarrassing. More so than me actually just crater myself through that hole.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Weapons restrictions lifted.
I didn't even look at the landscape. Holy shit, look at the ship us. Which one is he? Oh, you're over there, aren't you, film director? Got it. Got it. I figured it out. Is he living in like a volcano? The fuck? Pizza, barbecue base, all the way. Oh, this bread is supposed to go to him. I'm just going to pretend I left it on the way past. Is it Bowser? It might be, you know. If it is, it's Jack Black. Enjoyed the second Mario film today. Did the wee man enjoy it? No, I don't mean you, I mean Teddy. There must be another way to get a vehicle up here. He loved it. You jerk. What? I was just asking. You were on about getting him into video games as well. Have you thought any more about it? Are you going to let him play Mario, or Sonic might be a bit easier? Or Skywinders? You remember Skywinders? Right, so this is kind of the only way I can go then. Mario and Sonic is my thing. He's a bit young. And that's what's holding me back. Yeah.
Okay.
You could do what I did with my kid and made him... I played through Halo Legendary and made him my mobile spawn point. So he just kind of looked about the place. And I think for a lot of it, he kind of thought he was my screen, which was happy days. You can play Manhunt. Manhunt, good shout. Good wholesome family game.
Express ID verified. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. Cargo verified. Thank you.
Make delivery. Can we add that now? Boo. You're gonna make me do it separately. Fuck.
What do we have here?
Yes, rank. Nicely job. So you tried this with Blue Game and he said, Daddy, my remote isn't working. I'll use yours. He figured it out. Yeah, but at that point you just swap over to the other controller and just keep going. So that adds that to the camera network. There's just one wee sort of square left, which is cool. What's he give me? Oh, sunglasses. Let's set him up for school. Yep. Mr. Hook. Teddy has taken a crowbar to the side of people's faces and suffocated them with plastic bags. Where did he learn that from? Oh, his education. That's where he learned it from. No, none of them go to where I want to go. Oh, I'm just going to drive south. I hear him here, but... It's the stream more or less, but I'm lost. What do you mean? How has all this cleared? I had to climb over this shit earlier. And the story, right, so... The story makes complete sense, right? So, I'm playing as Norman Reedus, and the apocalypse has happened. And there's an event that happens. where these massive craters appear if somebody dies. So, we found a baby, and Mads Mikkelsen thinks his baby's class. So, he fought us in World War One, and Sam keeps getting naked at the beach, but now we're trying to find his sister, who's been kidnapped by Troy Baker, who also... That's a fucking thing from Horizon Zero Dawn. See, now I have more questions. How do you have more questions? I thought I just completely explained this whole thing. So Troy Baker's kidnapped his sister, and we have to make our way across to save his sister from Troy Baker, who also pretended to be some guy and gave us a bomb, which we threw in the tower, which your girl Fragile showed up. I think I've really well explained that. COVID causes people to blow up. My blast wiped out most of the world, and OpenReach lost connectivity. It's not reasons to go around and connect. Yeah, exactly. But also he doesn't get paid enough, so he delivers for Royal Mail on the side. What's not to understand? Woohoo! Oh, that was quite cool. That was kind of cool. BB is surprised by Sam's technical prowess. Yes. Are spreading... Yeah, he's spreading the fiber. Spreading the fiber sounds like something you do in the toilet. I want to make my way south. I did make a charging station somewhere. Yeah, so it makes complete sense. It's not convoluted at all. Hideo Kojima, this is a very simple children's story. And I'm sure the second one makes the same sense. Of love and science, exactly. Exactly. Right. Where the fuck did these guys show from? And tiny, tiny rocks apparently can cause you to not be able to move forward. Well, this is fun. Hopefully if I stay kind of out here. Ah shit, there's one there. Shit. Run as fast as we can. They can't catch me. Oh, they can catch me. They can catch me. Shit. Run. It's all gone pear-shaped again. Fuck. Ace, what's happening? I'm sad. Leoric is back. Oh. It's true, though. It's true. Right, I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm going to fucking run away. Because I, even again, have no... And Motorbike's over there. Even again, I have no actual weaponry to fight this thing. So when does Vin Diesel show up? He shows up whenever you create a family. To tell you how good the family is. There's my motorbike over there. Sometimes it's probably better just to get caught, so then you can actually just leave and... all this kind of happens. So they all kind of disappear now for a bit, as if I beat it, even though I didn't. It's kind of cool. Is the baby Vin? Yes. Yes, all bald people are Vin Diesel. That's science. The physics in this game are the best and worst part. It's like, yeah, we're going to put rocks everywhere. And sometimes they can, for no reason, just stop your motorcycle. You know what, maybe I should just go back and let that stuff repair. This sprays you with happy farts that repair your stuff. It's like an old message, much approved. Yeah, so Thai once said that in her stream, and now it's become a routine. What she was actually saying was, I'm sad that Leora came back at the end of the stream and missed the rest of it. But for some reason, some unscrupulous son of a bitch decided just to clip that bit. I don't know who it was. Don't know who it was. You know, we're not going to name names, we're not going to point fingers, but it was probably me. It is wonderful, like. And I think I've gone the wrong way. I'm supposed to go over this way. Wait, is this where I'm supposed to be? No, this is something else entirely. Hmm. Ooh, cutscene. We still keeping on. We're still keeping on. We're still keeping on. We don't have a hairy moment there now, like, but you know me. I don't deal with hair quite well. Luke's looking in the mirror again. He is. He always is. Do you know? See, when you actually look at Hook's stream, he doesn't play gameplay because it's a tiny box with gameplay, and the rest just has OBS camera of him on the screen. I've seen it. I wouldn't make that up. That's why every now and again he fucking gives it the... Was it the blue steel? What the fuck's this? Oh, it's a ghost baby.
Don't worry, Sam. She doesn't bite. Glad you made it.
Mama. Mama. Oh, it's her baby. There we go. Oh, so this actually was where we're supposed to go in the story. I did not know this. Can't they're all banned in this house? Nothing else gets done if Hook sees himself in his own reflection. He constantly keeps playing the Michael Jackson song as well. I'm talking to the man in the mirror. That person, I get that, yep.
There, she's down.
Fucking in front of Tomahawk Riku, coming in and stealing it. You absolute
Even though
maniac.
she can't drink it, my body keeps making it. Going through the motions really helps with the soreness, though.
What is she?
She's my daughter. And I'm her mama.
Her mama.
It's okay. She's only connected to me. It's not like the other BT.
Still lurking? I need my title though. This is true.
You can see it,
How are you
right?
supposed to go in the rapper? How are you supposed to go in the WrestleMania without it?
Now you know why I can't leave.
It's not personal. It is personal, Tomahawk. I would take it personally. He was telling me the other days, I'll see a Tomahawk fella. We fucking steal the title from him. He doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve it. And I was all, can't talk to Tomahawk like that. Tomahawk's a cool character.
So about the supercell.
Tomahawk is one of the trio in High Scores, High Stakes, the world's leading #1 competitive PlayStation podcast.
Do you think the grown-ups could talk?
How dare you, Riku, talk about Tomahawk like that? And he just didn't care. He didn't care.
Look at this. This was the chiral density when the supercell appeared. but almost immediately after, it dropped to normal levels. In other words, the storm vanished in less than a second.
That's impossible.
Okay.
Names and numbers, it's Ricky.
Pulled it out of
Ricky,
his
I'll send you
pocket
his
and
mobile
take a look
number.
then.
I know he loves as well. Can I say it? I'm a renegade. You are a renegade. I've seen you.
Well, that's all pretty crazy, but at least...
Why did that not pop up? Why is there such a delay? Hmm? 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 That's Tangia. Normally there's no issues with that. Do-do-do-do. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know why I'm singing the Crystal Maze song, but I just am. Just accept it. We'll just get on with our lives. Play. Bum, 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 bum. Wait. Your band stars no power here. My band star always has power. Losing a dramatic effect. These redeems are taking their time. That one just doesn't. Which is odd. Is everything else still working? Yeah. Excuse me? Excuse you me? Excuse me what? Por favore? Jesus Christ. What is happening today with these? And that one is trigger fire. And it's trying to work, it's just not. Even when I refresh it, it's not doing anything. It's OBS up to shenanigans. Sweet and gentle Jesus. I guess it's been flagged. Yes. Yes, I expect it from the org, not you. No. Your stream wants exclusive, make political statements. We just got to wait for this one to finish itself out. That's so weird.
I'm gonna start grinding and lock in. I'm locked in. I'm locking the fuck in, and I took a nap.
Yeah, that one worked.
I fell asleep.
And that one is also off Tangia, so or trigger fire, so that's weird. Why is the video ones all playing up? BK Ultimate came in and stole the title from Riku. Fair play, fair play. Now that one is done through StreamerBot, so that one's different. Could hear it in my head. I'm saying it amusingly enough in my voice. Yes.
This is not a flag. This is.
This is what? Come on, finish your sentence. Use your words. Use your fucking words. I don't think he wants to do it. I don't think he wants to do it. He doesn't want to finish the flag. What if I do another video one? Jesus Christ, what is going on with these tonight? What is going on with them tonight? Are you okay there? Are you fine?
Look at this graph!
I can see the graph. I can see the graph. Can you finish your sentence, though? Can you finish your words? Right, I might take off the Tangia and Trigger Fire ones for now because they're fucking up. I was going to say, is that everything fixed, but it's not even. Right. At least it's ended and not showing up on the screen anymore. Give me a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these off. Just anyone in the redeem. It's fucking diabolical. You know what? Let's try one more. Maybe that'd fix it.
But daddy is a state of mind, you know what I'm saying? I'm your daddy.
But that one worked. You know, we'll keep it on for now and we'll see how we get on. Ben Star himself, Brookie redeems. He did. Well, man. Well, man. No, Tangia, sorry, folks. I just want to get this sorted before we continue on. I don't know why it's... Because it's not even as if there's anything on straining on the PC because it's... Well, the game is running through the PlayStation. So DC can't make Henry Cavill look normal with CG with a mustache, but the devs in Death Stranding can make the girl from the screen look like a photo of the real woman. It's true. It's true. That was awful CG for Henry Cavill and that. Oh. Replay failed? Right, so there's an issue on Tangia's side. That's weird. What if I try it from here? No, nothing. Not a thing. Right, okay. We'll take them off for now. Pop them back on when Tangia decides it wants to work again. I think I got them with the horny police and oh no as well. I have to get the horny police. Oh no. Right, there, it's them off now so they don't cause shenanigans. Right, back to it. Back to the game. Horrendous. I know. So unprofessional, so unprofessional.
Timestamps in the logs support your story. Best guess I can muster is you were trapped between two different spacetimes.
Just like Kyle Reese was in Terminator. I'm just saying.
All they've got to work
Can you just say the Die Pearly Redeem in the Solid Snake voice? I don't even know the words for it.
They should be able to figure out where you were sent. Another Cairo spike.
No, the baby's not happy.
She's been crying more at night. Chiral density increases in regions connected to the chiral network, but the numbers are way higher than I projected.
Big Ultimate's gonna have it out. They're gonna have it out.
Means more chiralium. Early on, Bridges did acknowledge this as a potential problem, so I installed special limiters in the Cupids to keep the chiral levels in check. Looks like the limiter on yours is faulty, though. The supercell and the temporal phenomenon that you experienced may be related to all this.
Are you saying
Lady, I don't even know what you're saying.
Network, we might be in for more temporal phenomena?
Riku, do you like it?
Maybe.
Yes.
Or worse. They cause another Death Stranding.
She said the name of the game.
Of course I've got a solution. Right over here, in fact.
Oh, she's going to give me an identical
We just
set
need
of
to integrate
keys.
a limiter into this new Cupid I threw together.
What shirt was that? Oh, Riku, you know this one fine and well. Look at it. Edward. Edward. It is the greatest of all t-shirts. No, Cleo, I didn't call you. I know. I have two really bad Full Metal Alchemist ones. There's that one, and then there's one where it's the girl and the dog, and they're like, Wonder Twins, combine!
Oh, excuse me?
Great. Crisis averted.
No.
Crisis not averted.
What do you say?
We need to rewrite the software
No.
to work with the
No.
new hardware.
I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please. I designed the hardware, but the software is
Please.
Well, where can we
You happy with yourself?
Her. The name's Lochna.
You can see her bum.
She was a member of Bridges 1. You'll have to head to Mountain Knot City.
All right, I gotta take a Cupid there anyway.
Oh, good. That's great.
It's so dark where she is.
Here we go again.
I'm gonna have to get a proper light for her. You mentioned Cleo, she gets a treat. That's true. This is true. My own hubris defeated me. She's kind of looking at me. She keeps hearing me saying her name.
Maybe the other side wants her back.
Or maybe she wants to go back. We can't keep on like this. That much I know.
You want to tell me what happened?
She was due. I was in the hospital waiting for a C-section. Then the terrorists hit us.
Also, I do find it weird that it's in the middle of this really, really compassionate and really deep bit of story. It'd be the ultimate where Deans give the dog a treat. That makes you check the baby monitor. You know your own kids cry as well, which is weird.
Hello? Is anyone there?
I was pinned under the rubble. Nothing to do but wait and wait. Felt like forever.
Is that normal rain or the rain that makes you old as fuck?
They say
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no
You
points.
You know what?
And may God have mercy on your soul.
Well, that's me fucking told. But you push perfect timing. Perfect timing. I think that one kind of works anywhere. Anytime a streamer says anything, that works.
they're in the rubble.
Complete accident. My finger slipped.
But instead of bringing life into the world, I brought death.
She's gonna make her tongue really old. It's a weird sentence.
When the time fell stopped, my baby
My nose is
started
so
to
itchy
cry.
today.
She cried. Her life was the price I had to pay to survive. She saved me.
My tongue is really old.
And we've been together ever since. But she's a BT. The ties that bind her to this place bind me too. You could say I've never really been discharged.
And you're okay with that? I mean, you know she's gone. You want to live your life in the shadow of the dead?
Come on.
Jesus, Norman.
You, of all people? You chose the dead over the living. Why else would you be here? I just remembered. Dead men told me repatriates have special blood. Mind if I take a sample?
It's a bit forward. Oh, we just met.
Yeah.
Let me down her first.
Ah! Lark, I'm sorry. I don't have the brains.
I thought she was in the second one. The more you know. I didn't even know she was in the second one.
Just a second.
What is with these people in handcuffs?
All done.
Just buy like a smartwatch.
I want to run a test.
Mama, are you?
Ready? What's the story? How are you getting on? We have invisible babies here.
I'm sorry, Sam. Would you mind leaving us alone for a while?
Yeah. I gotta get to work.
Sir, ready. The video of Crash.
Hey,
Now, if you're looking for really, really cool stuff on stream, follow Ready. His setup is phenomenal.
Maybe we're making things worse.
She might not be.
Maybe
It's just when I saw the clip recently, I assumed it was the second one. Right, okay.
It's the only plan we've got. Good luck, Sam.
It's going well, although a lot of the browser sources are starting to play up a wee bit and really slow the fuck down. Tangia just wouldn't go at all.
Sam, the delivery terminal outside still works. Go ahead and get it connected. I'll give you further instructions from there.
He sent some to who? Norman? Norman Reedus?
Sam,
Next objective is mountain, not city, on the network.
take you to a way station and on to a distro center north of the city. From there,
Right.
it gets tricky. You'll have to take a detour to get around the mountains.
Still won't be using this Cupid on the way?
Fucking Lord of the Rings.
Software's not been rewritten yet.
It's fine. If you link up
They don't like you don't have Spark. Not that I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it. I also don't like the fact that now they Meld Studio used to do some really cool videos, you know, like how-to videos and stuff, and now everything's like, oh, just go in the Spark and type this. It's just become a prompt thing now.
Just have to hope she's all right and keep going.
Shocking. Yes, Chasm. You get it.
Anyway,
I think you can shout it out there as well.
City's southern distro center before you hit the road. And good luck out there.
By the way, Sam, I've added a zipline schematic to your PCC. Figured it would come in handy. All you need to set one up is at least 2 anchors. Why bother carrying cargo across a river or up
Zip
a deep river
lines.
when you can just send it
Beat me
through
to
the
it.
air? Am I right?
No
With a
bother.
little hands-on experience, you can use the anchors outside my lab.
Ask not what. Not ask not of others things you can do yourself. Can't do yourself. Can't do yourself. Won't do yourself. I don't know. Can't remember that.
If you want Fragile to send you, you'll need to head to a private room. South Knot City looks closest from what I can see. It'll be a lot quicker than walking, that's for sure.
Welcome to my video where I teach you how to make this thing in OBS. Anyway, just type in make this thing in the Spark. That's essentially what they've all become.
The options there if you need it.
Where they were normally very cool videos, and now it's just like, meh, just type it on. This thing is nearly dead. Where am I going to fucking charge it? You know, I might have to build a charger. Fabricate.
Did I tell you we added a zipline option to your PCC? Because we did. Build a few anchors.
Cool. I don't really want one yet, but okay. Terrible time for us. If the plugin wasn't paid, I'd cover it anyways, just for the sake of the video. That's a thing as well. I think you get only so many prompts, and then you have to start paying for it, and I'm like, ooh, it's a bit shit. Oh, I can see a zipline up there, so somebody's already implemented it. Right, so we are going to make a charger. There we go, generator. Generator. Obstacle detected. You're an obstacle detected. caution. We're throwing caution to the wind. Our charge our bike, we'll charge our climbing frame. We'll be ready to rock in. Look at that. Look at that. Sucking fucking diesel. Nah. Fully charged. Right, let's go. We're sucking fucking diesel. Nah. Right, we defeated the thing in here, so hopefully it doesn't pop back up again. Although, then again, is his helmet going down or up? Could be either way. I might need to find whatever the fuck is on here, that network I need to connect to. We'll take a wee drive and just see if we can see something. Is this not where we found, like, the Conan O'Brien character? The cosplayer, yeah. Is that the only one that's not connected? Oh, I don't fucking know. No idea. The puns make it easy for the evening man, I believe. Should be asking, what's the crack? That is true. Had a weekend of absolutely sod all, just relaxing for around the second load. Excellent, excellent. I like it. I like it. That sounds like an epic weekend. Fucking hell, I did it again. At least the good thing is I can get back out again. I thought it was a tiny hole. Turns out the hole was bigger than I anticipated. Isn't that always the way? We have shenanigans afoot. McKinn's, what's happening? How's the holiday going?
I remember getting blocked one time and joining the row by an accident.
Have you got any sleep since? No, I've lost my stream. You've lost your stream? What do you mean? Your streak? That's not what I'm saying, but I think it's Flamash's fault. Man, time zones, fuck about. Were you here for the one yesterday?
I need Dragon's power!
Whoa! Alright, favorite Irish streamer. Alright, Volley, what is the crack? Get to work, we're making a professionalized BRB starting soon animation. But I just haven't got the attention span at the moment. There's some really good pre-made ones. And see if you go, there's a website, ProFinder. Go to ProFinder and it has some pretty good animated videos for it. Is the bridge okay? The fucking isn't! There's been fucking chucked before! Shit! No! I don't have a club command. Yeah, I gotta get some sleep. I'm awake now. I was sleeping from 8 PM over there until 6:45 now. Ah, no way. Alright, so I did a stream yesterday. During the day, it was going to be a 4-hour one. So potentially it could be because of that. Boo earns. I know. I do it the old-fashioned way. I use Frosty Tools as well, so it automatically scrubs my VOD for clips. Blamash, you were on the beta for the Twitch's official AI clip thing. How was that? You don't stream on Fridays? Did you do I did the extra one yesterday because the Thursday one was interrupted with Twitch being racist towards Irish people. I've been at it. What's it like? Is it good? Yeah, pretty good. It's got higher success rate than failure rate. Ooh, nice one. Ah, could have went badly.
Sam, check the terminal for available orders. One moment,
Right.
Sam. We just received an urgent distress call. Porter out on a run's been injured and can't make it back on their own. It looks like they were carrying schematics for a new autonomous bot prototype. We can't afford to lose those either. Check the order for details.
Flemish, it is Flemish's fault. He's the one that broke it. Let's have to go rescue some guy. Right, okay. Wheelie.
All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Right, okay. So there's somebody stuck out to go rescue. Cool, 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 cool. Sounds like plan. Orders for Sam. Rescue Porter carrying bots. Oh, so it's way back that way. That sounds good. Let's go. I don't need anything from a private locker. What do you point me here for?
Order assigned. Have a pleasant journey. Keep on keeping on.
I'm just going to stick to the bridges. Thank you very much. I popped the tab. Look, sure, it looks relatively simple compared to the main areas. Yeah, because what it does is it can make kind of custom videos that allow you to just put in like your logo or some text, and then you just play the video as the scene. And it's something that's a bit more dynamic, and it's easy enough to install. If you go on me and Hook's website as well, we have a video on how to actually manage, go navigate the website and set them up too. Plug! Right. Is it still going to make me fall? Nah, we got it. Sweet. Bit of a rough landing, like, but you know what? We're grand. We're fine. We'll deal with it. You are Mule Camp? No. Oh, look at all them lovely Death Strandings up there. It's time-based as well. Fuck. Right, okay. We'll go around. No, I'll find out where exactly on the map it is, because I don't want to go on the wrong side of the water. Right, it's beside the Carol Artist. Right, so I kind of dip along the coast, then up. Dip along the coast, and then up. Bum 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 bum. I just keep reminding myself as well. I was thinking earlier, I was like, oh, it's Sunday tomorrow. I mean, I have to get ready for work then afterwards. I was like, no, not Monday. Yo. Fucking love a bank holiday. May is one of the better months of the year. The weather starts to get better, and we get a couple of bank holidays. I think one year we got 3. I think there was an extra day we got for a coronation as well at one point. Or a funeral. Was it the Queen's funeral? I can't remember. We got an extra one for both, right? Okay. My trike battery's running out. I'm hoping there's something up here I can charge it on. There's a bridge at least, so somebody's done something. And there's a car. Where is this guy? That's still, is it this the person? Is it inside? No. He's not, no. What the fuck is it? It's in this area. Climbing ladder. Is this it? Well, I'll go there, read this description, just to figure out what the fuck this is. Collect, rescue porter carrying bot research data. Yeah. It's in this general vicinity that I'm in. Right, I'm just going to go out and look for an I'm a freak and dislike bank holidays because I always end up barbecuing in the rain. What? Why in the rain? Why not do it outside of the rain?
Sam, there's someone near your position. Did you see them?
No.
Closer look.
Are they?
Finding Leoric in another
there he is
person's
himself.
chat is not,
Hilarious.
shall we say, the rarest gym badge in Kanto. You'll usually find him somewhere making dad jokes, you know?
Ian, what is happening?
Yeah, but
You know
like,
something
you're one of
Photoshop
those, like,
can get in the
shiny
sea.
ones that everyone has because they were like in a special drop event or something like that, you know?
I tried, but the rain said no. The rain's a bastard.
Looks like they're secure. Now bring them home.
Nice tricks. We're doing well. We're doing well. We're making progress. And bit of banter. Bit of banter. I don't know. I'm fed up carrying people though. I don't know why I keep having to carry them. This guy, right? Yeah, he's injured. But the last girl, there was no reason for me to be carrying her about the place. None at all. Can I get in the truck? Can I take him in the truck? There's no reason why I can't take this guy in the truck. Can this guy... No, he can't go in truck. Can I use vehicle? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And straight out, all parts of barbecues, they're free. All parks of barbecues are free to use. That's kind of cool. That's really cool. Who the fuck is that? Pliskin? Who the fuck's what? Snake Pliskin? I don't know. I know I keep saying it every time there's a song in this, but it's a class soundtrack. We would have it in quite a few parks over here as well, though. There is a wee, like, there's normally benches with little barbecue pits, but they wouldn't be as frequently used. Plus, we don't really fucking get the weather for it at all. And so if they return them up there, why can't they just return them anywhere? Would the nearest place not be the best place to return them instead of, just keep going over here? You know that big crevasse where you keep throwing your cars on there? Eventually you'll build up enough space with broken cars that you can just walk across it. It's a car bridge. I don't have any control. I've completely lost control. I lost the controller for my TV. Wasn't even remotely funny. No, I'm just trying to push Flemish's buttons.
Oh, son of a bitch!
See, would here not be a good place to leave the guy? No, not at all, not at all. I don't even have to care anymore. This isn't even my truck. This is your man's truck. Go fuck up his truck. Is it though? Oh, fuck around. Let's see. I can see them. This is just some bullshit now, isn't it? This is just going to be entirely over the area I need to go to. I don't know why them mules are fucking about as well whenever this is all happening. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to charge, and you're going to let me do it. No one's going to mess about. No one's going to try and hurt me. You leave me the fuck alone. I think here might actually be the best place to jump across. Look at this wee tiny gap. If I run and jump. Yes! There we go. Here we go. We're sucking diesel. I'm trying to take this guy the most direct route back as well, but the weather is absolute shenanigans, and now I have to climb that mountain as well afterwards. Don't know how that one's going to be worked out. I have to remember as well not to take that guy's ramp. It's a trap. He's doing it to try and kill me.
Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons fine. Keeping up. Decontaminate.
Keep on keeping on.
All clear. Welcome to Transporter Bridges.
Happy days. Here we go. But Ian, how's your other... sure, they're not going. How's your weekend going? You seem to be really enjoying Saros as well, which is cool. I've seen a few people going on about how great the game is. Also, I was on... I don't know if it was the same stream that me and you were on the other day, or it was another one with Raul and Lana. But he actually printed out the review IGN gave him with the 7 and just got it done on a t-shirt. I thought, fucking genius. Oh, good. We hosted some She Internet's relations today, which is nice. Oh, very good. And by the way you phrased that, it sounds like you get on with them, which is nice. Yeah, Saros is class. It seems to be, and it seems to be the type of game you enjoy anyway, because you love Returnal. I couldn't get into Returnal too much because I was shit at it. Looks amazing. Can't wait to play it.
You did good.
This guy's picture looks like we've just walked in on him looking at porn.
Feel free to fabricate. Be it.
Good, loving watching it in the streams. I know, it's so good. Should really just send a lot of these orders out. I keep forgetting to do it as well. I know that it's a risk going with them, but you know what? If we can deliver more stuff. Okay, what you played it? Fucking swanning on here, hey? Stealing people's titles? Disgraceful. Disgraceful. Bodybot, it's... So can I just make a few of them? Just one? Just one apparently. And can I send another order then? No. Either cancel or activate a Thomas Silverbot order or wait for order to be completed. So can I do one order at a time? That's a bit shit. Will this guy follow me about? Oh, that's even better. Sweet. I am going to go to the private room first so I'll get washed up because I know it does affect my stats. Yes, it was on the high score count last night, and you were so chill during all the combat, where I'd be fucking panicking. Especially streaming as well, you do kind of lose a bit of your skill for stream brain. Chillness didn't disappear. You still appreciated all my jokes whenever you were playing. It was high stakes. Blood transfusion. Time passed while you were sleeping? No. No way. I can't believe that.
EX grenade number 0.
I don't really use the grenades. I don't really use them.
The latest in our line of EX grenades. I give you the number 2.
Is that what I think it is?
This model was produced with various extracts refined from your fecal matter.
Yay! Poo
We
grenades.
suspect that your regular consumption of cryptobiotes has led you to excrete certain compounds that may prove especially effective against BTs. If you would like us to produce more, you need only furnish us with the requisite raw...
Oh, we're gonna poop now. What are you pointing at, Norman Reedus? What? Is it because I have mail? I'll look in a minute. I want to poop. Yeah, so I'm assuming it's sitting. Not gonna stand up and throw shit at it. Like. All cause of the Dooms, man. I know it's the answer to everything. Dooms, bro. I seen someone shared a brilliant TikTok the other day of taking a shit in the 90s, and it's just sitting reading the back of conditioner and moisturizer and any other bottles are standing there reading the ingredients of them. That's all we had to do. That's all we could do. Why is my nose so itchy? I have 40 unread emails. I have not read any of these. Marriage sucks, Jesus. That's the guy we got the missus doing. Never get married, Sam. Fucking hell. Yeah. I'm gonna go to the other ones because they give me stuff. Did they give me stuff? No. They give me thumbs up. Can I, is there a read all? Read all? Oh, this annoys me. I don't have to read them all. Right, no, we're just gonna leave that. We're not doing it anymore. Fuck it. Fuck it. Right, so... Still haven't done that mule one, but I don't really want to do it, so we'll just fucking leave it. It's grand. It's grand. Fine. Orders for Sam, so this is the one we're doing. We're going to the way station. Okay. Okay. Cool. Wonder how much stuff it's going to make us take, though. I feel like I should maybe start bringing stuff with me as well while I'm going up. I'll wait until I get to the next way station and do it. Let's go! And I'm going to take... Yeah, I'm going to take the truck. I'm going to take the truck. Deliver cargo. So this is all the stuff we're taking, right? Okay. We fire as much of this on the truck as well as I can because it's going to be a nightmare. I'm away for the night, sir. Thank you for the month of time. Riku, thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing your stream again tomorrow and watch you absolutely smash and finish up Kingdom Hearts. it's all ceramics as well. This is the fucking stuff I needed that last time. Thank you, sir. I'm going to cry, I think. You have a wee cry, and then finish some Kingdom Hearts. Bum, 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 bum. I made that road earlier. Is there any more roads made? I don't think so. Probably should see about increasing the amount of roads along here, but I'm not going to do so yet. Sir? No! Not that way. No! We go this way. I think this is a long range one as well, so I should get a good bit of battery out of it.
Still got it.
Oh, it doesn't matter, they just see me anyway. Boom, 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 boom. I hope they don't get me with that thing that kind of froze me last time. Whoa, whoa, just missed my Betsy. I need to make it to the road. Oh, I'm about to drive under that. Shit. Make it on the road, we're home free. No, we're gonna stuck. Fly! Yep, that's how physics work. That's how physics work. I'm very much wanting to get a new tattoo now. What tattoo are you getting? What are you thinking? I fucking love tattoos. What are we talking about? Is it nerdy? Is it nerdy or is it very Tron music? Ah, that's a butt, isn't it? I like the nice canon music in this game though. I do enjoy it. I need to actually see about booking on my Tron again because I'm kind of going up here. So I got Icarus last time, which fucking love. It's my boy. So I need to start filling in the gaps down around here, and then I know what I'm getting in this gap here, but I need to do the rest of them around the back of my arm first before I figure out what's happening then. But Hook went and got a tattoo recently, got a Halo one. Really cool looking. I feel like I need to charge somewhere before I go up here. SK! Ooh, nice. Tiny Bobcat. Friend of Mike's got an SK one that was pretty cool. Nerdy tattoos I think are class. I think they're just a lot of fun. They tell a story, you know, and I like seeing them. I just like seeing them. I have my Infinity Gauntlet on my leg, but the other leg looks bare still. You should get a bear on the bear leg. There we go, we just fixed it. Shit. It's almost as if the game doesn't want me to have an easy time going to these locations. You know what I mean? I'm actually gonna make my way over there, that charger. Hopefully. I was chatting to Hook about games as well the other day, and we were talking about, you know, what games do well, what games don't, what to stream for the channel. And he was saying I should maybe lean on more to like anime style or JRPGs. I don't know. I can't even see where them bastards are. What the fuck is that? Jellyfish? In my opinion, as always. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But that's normally what we do in them chats. We just kind of discuss what would be cool and different ideas and stuff. I don't think going straight up there is even a plan. Game doesn't matter. Just hop in a hot tub. That'll do it. That'll do it. Who wants to see Phil Mitchell in a hot tub? I'm still on the fence about streaming the channel instead of High Squares High Stakes, but I can't get the arse with the rebuild. Hot tub 12-hour stream. Do you want me to turn on the erasing? You give me a raise in the stream? I often wonder about that myself, to be fair. What's this? A rebrand? Or hot tub stream? I get the impression anyway we're going to have to abandon our vehicle. No, the game and genre play. I think you have a pretty sweet one at the moment where you have a really, really class community and a lot of the people come in just, they mostly see Ian. So you can do really cool things like your platinum run for Final Fantasy games and stuff. And then you get the Final Fantasy people on too. See, Hook got a lot of traction with like Souls games, but he found whenever he tried to do like Final Fantasy VII, he didn't see so many of them come back for an RPG because they kind of just wanted to see Souls, which is fair enough. That's what happens. Such a pick of what they play, but you are smashed it, man. You're doing phenomenal, but you're very likable as well and really funny, and that's I think people enjoy. Where's Hook's a fucking dick? What? What? Who said that? See if I will climb up here and there's a fucking road. Samwise Gamgee. Witness the awesome power of the ring. You must climb the mountain. Yeah, there's no road. It was just a kind of a better track. But you know, I'm not quite aware of it. Has been helpful in my stream. Has it actually? That actually means a while out, man. I'm actually all chuffed by it. We're just... the reason we set it up is there was people asking us questions about stuff, and I was like, that'd be handy just to put in a video to help explain it. And if it's questions we've asked, it means there's probably stuff that could be useful to other people. Yeah, made it. Oh, that's right, you made the check-in redeem. Oh, I'm actually all alert with that. I'm trying to build up a backlog of videos again, mind you. Yeah, we did. We got into a thing where we were going to release one video a week. And me and Hook were going to make a video a week, and that way we were always ahead. And then we just decided just to lower load one. We could just put on like 5 videos. Then we just have to restart again. It just meant that if we ever got to the stage where one of us wasn't feeling creative or maybe didn't have any ideas on a video, we could just use one of the ones that we'd banked.
All weapons will be locked until departure. Cargo verified. Thank you.
I think maybe our main issue is at the very start, we had loads of ideas about videos, and then when we did them ones, we're just like, oh, right, okay, we have to think of more now. The shorts are quite good. I'm have to start getting into the habit of making shorts of the longer form videos that we've made.
Oh, you must be Sam Bridges. That one-man expedition team? They may be cut off up here.
I'm sorry, man. I don't want to hear what you say.
All right. All we need now is to get jacked into the network. Am I right?
Yep. That'll fix it. Yeah, other weeks. I find it handy when someone asks you a question. You know, when someone's like, "Oh, how would you do this?" And you're like, "Oh, that'd be a good video idea." And we're even earlier when Kazim was talking about Be Right Back screens, I was like, oh, we've a Profinder video on that. So that one we've already covered. Just check out the YouTube channel. Armored plate. Armored plate. Armored plate. Right, okay, there's loads of stuff up here now. I don't think there's much that's going to help me climb this mountain, though.
Man, it sure feels good to be part of the UCA for real. We've been literally marooned on an island for way too long.
He's like, I haven't talked to someone today, just talk to me. Skip, 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 skip.
Network to the district.
Blah, 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 blah.
Good work. New
Where?
order available. Please access delivery terminal for further.
This is going to keep me going on up the mountain. Blood delivery? Right, okay. They're not worried this is going to be completely in vain. My photoshopping is done, now I can lock in and watch this and play Returnal again. Ooh, nice one.
Remember, Sam. Review.
The clock is ticking on this one, right, okay. Oh, and now I'm going to fabricate some stuff. Right, so I have my speed skeleton.
What's the Elvish word for friend?
Ben.
Melon.
Is this about the meld stuff? Because I got stuck on something and there doesn't seem to be any easy tutorials on it. Well, what'd you get stuck on? Because they've now just made everything AI. Ben, welcome in. What is happening? Specifically getting FedoTube Mini to work. What the fuck's FedoTube Mini? I don't know what that is. I've never even used that. But also, yay! A VTuber? You becoming a VTuber? Man. I've never used it. Unfortunately, I can't even help. I've never ever used it at all. Yes. 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 But there's a cool t-shirt. It is. It is. I'm giving it a try. Oh, fair play. Fair play. No, I've never even given it a go, the VTubing. Oh, I was going to build stuff, wasn't I? Shit. That's just a non-lethal rifle. Don't encourage him. Encourage me. Do it. Do it. Wait, am I not a VTuber model? Shh. Don't tell people. I'm completely AI. You know, I'm waiting for that to happen. That's going to be something that happens. We're going to see at some point a VTuber model that's also completely controlled by AI and just left on 24 hours to stream and constantly just bounce off people in chat. I think that'll be the next thing. I'll probably get something from my little private locker here. Should I bring boots? No, I don't think I need boots. Support skeleton. I have the speed skeleton. Should I maybe go for a better speed skeleton? Weapon-wise, non-lethal assault rifle. Go with one of them. And a floating carrier. No. We'll go with the bop. No, floating carrier. Floating carrier. I've equipped a new skeleton. Right, and I could probably throw back. That's the gold skeleton. There we go. Can confirm he's a VTuber. The real org is actually a rare butterfly called Larry. Stop giving away my secrets. The SND time and how long it takes for Twitch to ruin the AI. Oh, it'll be minutes. Minutes. It wouldn't take long at all. I have a floating carrier. I have blood. Right, this is a blood transfusion pack. I have a container repair spray. I have a gun. I have a non-lethal rifle. Try to hang out in my tool rack. Right, okay. Right, now we're climbing the mountain? Where are we going? Where are we going? We're going this. Oh, so I have to go around the outside there. There looks to be loads of bridges and stuff this way, so that's the way we go. Oh, oh fuck, I have 40 minutes to do it. Go, go, gadget. Feet. What's the spaceship for? Looks like the one out of Cyberpunk. I always say AI is just life now. It'll become the norm. However, I hate how much it kills creativity. Yeah. But I reckon that will be a... I don't mind AI in video games, but I want it to be something like, here's an NPC, and they have 12 lines of dialogue. But when the dialogue's completely exhausted, the AI can do responses to any questions you have based on that character and what that character knows. But I don't think it should be replacing art in any way. I want to go whichever way has all the tech, which is this way. Nah, I just find it a bit stressful being on camera sometimes. So looking at alternatives, one of my friends also recently switched to VTube because even he felt stressed, judged by being on camera. I'm sure you guys get that sometimes. I feel when Hook's looking at me because I don't know what he's doing with his hands. I just don't know. Why did that person put a bridge there? Jesus Christ, what a fucking tube. Here's my favorite extra. Folly! How dare you! I understand why people... Oh, definitely, definitely. There's very good reasons for it, like... And the technology's there to be used. And I've seen people go both ways. I've seen people go from live camera to VTubing, or the other way around. VTubing live camera. Actually, Lenny, who me and Reddy and all know, she does both. She has 2 separate channels, one for VTubing and one for live streaming. How's your very fine self? Look, you are a fucking flirt. What's up? Emergency fuel? Nah, too heavy. Ooh, there's trees over here. Yeah, I just want the option sometimes. I wouldn't pay for a VTuber model because I feel like I would pay money for it, and it would be just that I would have to actually take settings off it just to make it bald. It would end up just being less than what the VTuber... So this one has animated hair. I don't have hair. It'd just be, what's the generic skeletal frame of the VTuber model before you put any assets on it? That's me. Is that where I'm going? No, it isn't. It's up this way. I sadly have an itch out of fear of puppets of VTubers and don't get along. What about Misty? Misty's good crack. I always wonder what the hell Oh, Jesus Christ, Ian just mentioned her there. Hell, Misty must be doing the other side of that setup. Seems like she's doing loads. Her brain is phenomenal. Like, she fires in so many cylinders. The fact that everybody has a cool nickname and she remembers everybody and facts about them and what game, you know, it's just... I can't even remember Hook's name half the time. Oh, no, Misty's phenomenal. But you can see why she's so popular as well, because she's so quick and entertaining and fast. Wayne's fucking laughing at me. Do not start your ship. We're running. Oh, my battery's almost dead on my shit. Fuck. Well, I can still run. That's not too bad. I just don't have my, like, super powered run. Fucking mule bastards. I am delivering blood, which is feck off. Ah, the famous duo of summer. What's the famous duo of summer? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? What am I? Holland and the wife. Allergic to both. Antihistamines fix neither. And do you need somewhere? Is that charging kinetically? Like, it seems to be getting a little bit of battery as I run. If it is, that's kind of fucking cool.
Heads up, Sam. Looks like you've tripped an intrusion sensor. To be clear, these sensors react to you, not to your cargo. Be careful. Trouble may be on the way.
There may be trouble ahead.
Sam, we're thinking you ran afoul of a local terrorist cell. Former mules who took a turn for the worse.
This is a very intense cumbersome. Wait till you see the BTs and the fucking ghosts that try and murder you. This game's great. I'm enjoying it.
Destruction are their drugs of choice now.
Well, that's good.
Give them the satisfaction. You kept your cargo safe. Great work.
Just fucking ran.
Last of them, though. Keep your eyes peeled.
I'm assuming that phone call was supposed to happen as soon as I entered the area, but I bolted through it. Run, Sam, run. Shammy. Dean. Shammy. Dean. Cass. Shammy. I can slow down the run now a wee bit. Bridges staff expected to die in 30... It's very precise. It's almost like someone's about to murder them if I don't get here in time. Funky clothes.
Nice.
There's a bit of a crevasse here. There, the crevasse. Fill it with your mighty juice. Well, Starlight, welcome on. What is happening? The Orc. That is my name. Well, actually, it's not even my name. My name's Joe. It's grand on Twitch. It's really cool on Twitch. But see, when you meet people in real life and they call you that, you just kind of like, oh, it's weird. I appreciate the Wonderware reference. Thank you. Thank you. And this is a Konami game. That is very well done, Starlight. Very well done. Look, could you give little Starlight a wee shout out for me, please?
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID.
Oh, this place is a wee bit run down, isn't it? But there's big trucks. I wonder if I get to drive the trucks. Thank you very much. Currently playing Kingdom Hearts, like our Riku.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, we made it there quick. We just bolted. So it does seem to be recharging my skeleton through just kinetic energy. Thanks for shouting. Not a problem. Yeah, I'm getting big enough on Twitch that I'm getting followers trying to sell me art. What a time to be alive. Well, that is that's how you know you made it. Just quit the job now. Quit the job. That's it. Full-time streamer. That's how you know.
All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
The only problem I find is sometimes people come to you with legit stuff as well, and you're just like, "Now you're trying to sell me art, man. This man can live." Well, I'm in the middle of a job application as we speak. Don't even need it, just scrap it. Full-time streamer now. That's it. It's done.
Thank you so much. Our med team should have no trouble patching him up now.
Good.
You're a lifesaver.
I know. Tell me about it.
Hey, watch yourself.
Done. I'll tell the wife in the morning. That's what Leork said. And see, she'll know who that is as well, because, you know, I'm a household name at the moment. Well, just in my own house, and they normally just call me Dad. And can I have money?
Oh, hello, Papa. I was just about to. What have you put on my head? I do not like it. You have made me to look like a
silly cows, and I am not a silly cows.
I am a strong and agile German Shepherd. Keine dumme Kuh.
Keine dumme Kuh. Wow. I just want to see if this works again now.
You were so filled
with
your own self-importance that you didn't think to question that maybe you might actually die, and here we are. Go well to your grave, Tom.
Sam.
Die poorly.
With the help.
Just like you lived.
Fair play, Ben Star, fair play. Oh my god, I know that one. That's brilliant. It's one of my favourite memes, the one with the German Shepherd. Mate, we have a shrine dedicated to you in the lounge. Hook is the one in the kitchen, and most of our cleaning products are of the Leork brand. Good. There's Mr. Muscle, and there's Mr. Not Muscle, and I'm Mr. Not Muscle. Was Mr. Sheen the bald guy? Or was Mr. Muscle? I can't remember. No, Mr. Muscle had hair. Mr. Sheen didn't, if I remember right.
All right, Sam.
I read that as well, mate. We have a Shinra dedicated to you in the lounge, and I was like, happy days. They have a small electric power company dedicated to me in their house.
And check your gear before you set out.
Mr. Sheen looked like he fought in World War One. Very good, very good. Ah, fall down. Ah, fall down. Ah, fall down. Per Norman. Although walking dad himself. No, he's ending up on the beach again. If I had a penny for every time I woke up like this. That's not our baby, is it? Oh, no. It's fake. It's fake, baby. Look, strain and blocker clears away all the hair, but strangely leaves a stylish and well-crafted beard in the clean area. Well, that's how it works. That's how it works. The beard is like a Brawler pad. Bad, Troy Baker. Bad. Also, that's not how you take jewelry off. I don't think you need to stab the person. Looks great on him though. Like it suits him. I can see why he did it. House sacrifices are getting expensive though.
Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die. Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die. By the psycho killer inside.
Is that the lead singer of Sleep Token? I don't know who that is. Troy Baker? No, I am. Tomahawk is.
Chance to talk like this.
Tomahawk and Mr. Popsicle are having a fight to see who's the best mustache on Twitch. And to be fair, regardless of who wins, we all do.
Promise me you'll keep building the chiral network. It's our only hope for the future. It's my
With a
only
mask
hope
on.
for
Right, okay.
freedom. And when you've finished, we can go back east together.
She's very tall.
Amelie, your keeper, where is it?
Sam, I'll be waiting for you on the beach.
Lady, we're going on the mountains. We ain't going to the beach. I'ma leave you on the beach. For Bert and Ernie. They lived a good life. Hey, Bert. Hey, Ernie. What's it? 18 months ago, best show I've ever been to. I don't like live music. I wouldn't go to a concert, and it's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I just can't think of anything more uncomfortable for me to go and stand with people and have it very, very loud, and I'm busy trying to get on there and trying to get home, and everything being super expensive. Or festivals as well, being out in the middle of a field. No, rather be at home in PC. So Brig Invention in July. Another one off the long list. Ooh, nice one. This Habert was a grand hamster. Thank you very much, Little Starlight, for the lurk.
Back off!
Did you see I managed to get my bot renamed as well yesterday? After 2 long months. I don't know what's going on.
Hey Sam, I have some new info you should hear. Recently recovered thanks to your efforts to expand the chiral network. It
This is on of the lobotomy. It is.
I dug this up on my own, just to be clear. No one ordered me to look. And if anyone asked, put it all on me. No need for you to deal with any blowback. You were just listening to me ramble on the wire, okay? Anyway, it looks like Bridges wasn't the first to bring back BB Tech. It was a group of separatists.
Oh.
Terrorists opposed to use
Sus.
expansion. According to the records, they started using them about 3 years ago. Right around the time Bridges 1 was putting plans in place to head west. Seems these separatists were having trouble with BTs too, and figured that if they could track them, they might be able to steer them into our path. When Bridges caught wind of this, the decision was made to fight fire with fire, to start using BBs as a countermeasure. It's possible yours was commissioned for that very purpose, a fact I think someone may have tried to conceal, judging by the absence of BB-28's service record. I always found it strange that we were so willing to utilize technology we barely understood. Now we
To
know
be
why.
fair, we still do
We've
it.
been aping methods and techniques employed by others from the start. There's more you should know.
It's like there's a really good comedy skit of a guy, and he's talking about going back in time. It's not Terminator. It's talking about going back in time, and he's all. I think my issue with time travel is, say I went back in time, I don't think I could prove it to anybody. I don't think I could convince them I'm a time traveler. They'd be all like, "Oh, so what's it like in the future?" He's all, "It's great. We have phones. We have mobile phones. Or cell phones. Oh, what cell phones? Oh, it's like a small, like brick. And you can talk to people all over the world in it, and it has all the information on the internet. Oh, how does it work? I don't know. Satellites? What's a satellite? It's in space? Don't know. You wouldn't be able to explain anything. And they're all, "Oh, we'll tell us something that's going to happen now the next year." And say it's like 1978 or something. You're like, I have no idea. Not a clue. Yeah. Does he book John Connor's ma? Yes. Yes, he does.
It's about the original Bridge Baby experiments. Piecing together what little I could find, it looks like they started around the time of the Death
Do you not know its name? He doesn't know its name.
They were conducted on the
You should watch them.
Manhattan off the East Coast
But not in the right order. In just a random order.
by what was almost certainly a void out. Back then, these experiments
experiments had the full support and approval of the American government. It's all just guesswork, but I suspect the BB program was conceived to help gain a better understanding of the nature of the Death Stranding. However, due to ethical and safety concerns, public opinion was strongly against the program. Still, they pressed on, and in their desperate...
Kind of getting bored with this. Stop talking. Let me deliver things.
Sam, check the delivery terminal and review the list of orders.
Why don't you check the delivery terminal and review the list of orders?
The people of Mountain Knot City have a pressing problem that needs... A tar-like substance has been bubbling up from beneath. They're seeing more of it, but there have already been reports of ejecta inside the outer walls.
Ew.
There's an order from Mountain Knot. Check the details.
When do you get your sword and change your name? Right. It's the second one. And then you only play as the main character for like a little bit at the start, and it's great, and it's wonderful, and then it's just shite the rest of the game. Antimatter bomb delivery. They love me delivering bombs, don't they?
That firearm can be loaded with hematic round. It should...
Right, cool. Cool. I don't want to know. I have a non-lethal one. I'm going to stick with the non-lethal one because I know if I kill people, it fucks up everything. Do I want to bring a truck? Apparently. But you know what, we'll dump it if we...
Be advised, Sam. The case for that antimatter bomb was the magnetic traps that keep the antimatter a powerful impact, reckless drive, any app, if at the...
Well, that's fun. Okay, so we have a very unstable bomb that could go off at any point. We're waiting for Norman Reedus to die, and then the real game really starts when he actually plays Jeff Bezos, and then it turns out Jeff Bezos stole the idea. What's the bets as well? There's absolute shenanigans going on out here. I want to drive one of them big trucks. Right, so I am going... Jesus, look at all this. Right. There's a bridge there. There's zip lines, generators. Okay. And to get here? What's the topography like? You know, how difficult is it to get up there? Hmm? Can I plot... Right, okay. Am I even facing the right direction? I am. I'm going to make it for that bridge. If there wasn't like a rain that would age you and make you die very, very quickly, and also monsters would appear from the sky and try and eat you, this would be nice. This would be alright, you know.
Someone's happy.
We're driving a truck with a bomb in the back and the Wayne's laughing. Fucking mental. Seems like a lot of resources there for that. Where we... Oh, there's marauders. Shit. They're going to see me anyway when I cross over here. Let's get that wee bit of a charge and then boom, we're away. We're gone. Can I stop and tell them I have a massive explosive in here? Just like, stop shooting me for like 2 minutes. Right, where am I going now? So, I've got a fair bit across. Right, there's a bridge there. I don't think... Do I need it? Oh, there's safe houses. Maybe I should go that way. Maybe that's the better way up the mountain. There's people put stuff here, so potentially. Oh no. Don't start raining. Oh fuck, I can see them already at the top of the mountain. We'll take this up as far as we can. Yeah, battery's running out. I know, I know. Whoa. I may just actually have to get out at this point because it's getting very bumpy. Oh shit! It's escaping! No! There we go. We're all nice and snug with our baby and our bomb. Dad of the year. Let's go. Wait, where am I going? I kind of have to just keep going in this sort of direction, and I think I can cut across this mountain. Oh, there's a wee bridge. Nicely job. Of course, it rains. Bum 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 bum. Making up a song in my head. Come on, Sammy. I'm wondering where this shit's gonna get really bad. I can see them up there, up in the mountain. I'm still going the right direction. Yes, I'm just making very slow progress. There doesn't really seem to be like a fast travel mechanic, unless there is, unless that's what that beach fragile thing is. Maybe that's what it is. Oh, new song, new song. Baby's laughing. Fucking hell, it's atmospheric, isn't it? Is that it there? Is that where I'm going? It is. Lethal. Alright, be careful now coming down here. Take it slow, take it slow. There we go. It looks like we have near enough a straight path across there. Can't see too much up in the sky around the direction I'm going. It looks to be more so up over the mountain itself. We're just having to deal with a lot of horrific rain. Distribution center north of Mountain Knot City. Which one's that? Is this the one I'm going to? No, that's the one there. No, I'm not going that way yet. Well, Norman, move them arms. Suck it in. Rain stopping, nice one. It's a good coat. It's a good winter coat, I must say. You get that in B&M. as good as the music is as well, it's very creepy, isn't it? They're out creepy tunes. Oh, 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 oh. Careful now, careful now. See, this is about where you fall. That's like when you actually do go climbing a mountain and you're all excited and full of beans on the way up, but you have to realize you have to conserve your strength and stuff on the way back for the way back down, because that's that's like even more dangerous, the climbing back down bit, because that's when you mess up. I wonder how all these roads are going to connect. Look at all the houses and everything as well. They're kind of cool. Was that a voided? Could it just a wee money one then?
Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. Cargo verified. Thank you.
Tell you what as well, I don't normally stream new games. I normally try and stay clear of them because there's normally a bit of a, not a competition, but you normally find there's a lot of people playing the new games at launch on Twitch. But also, there's a lot of people who maybe won't want to call into the stream because they don't want spoilers and stuff. But I'm tempted by 007 First Light. I think it's out on like a Wednesday. So I could probably do it that night if or I could just play it myself. But I'm just very excited about it. It seems like a really cool game. Warbird, antimatter bomb, right, okay.
Delivery complete. Displaying performance evaluation.
Showed my Suka trailer last night. For some reason, she doesn't give a fuck. My god. Is she even a real gamer? Is she even a real gamer, Hook? You know... Is she a noob? Not gonna accuse you of marrying a noob, but my god. Exactly, shambles.
What do you think you're doing, Bridges? That network you're building is carrying some nasty stuff. I thought... I'm not... Look, go home and...
Oh, she's not being very nice.
I need your help.
How'd you need a bookshop DLC for that?
You're only making things worse.
Ah, because Rita's a book.
Sorry you had to deal with that, Sam. She's the boss over. We need her, and we need her people. Without Mountain Knot City, the Chiral Network, and the UCA will never be complete.
What now?
He looks so serious as well, doesn't he?
Sam, Lochna is Mama's twin sister. Former second group. Mama's not her real name, of course. Both have dooms and both are scientific geniuses.
Right, okay.
Field of expertise is applied physics. Lochna's is theoretical. Mama designed the Cupid hardware. Lochna, the software. They said they could converse, or said they had a special... I don't know how that's possible. There wouldn't be a chiral net. They were so close that some said they were like one person in two bodies. Might be why they were able to develop the Cupid. But they had a falling out after Molingen's accident. Lochna left Bridges and cut off all contact with us. I don't know what happened between them. But if we don't bring Lochna around, our plans to make America whole again are
America!
finished. Not that I'm asking you to stick your nose in their personal business. Though if you did, it might help us figure out how to bring Lochna around. Which would be great, because our plans to make America whole again are finished.
Ask Jeeves is officially closed on May 1st. Oh my god. What am I going to do? Who am I going to ask from now on if I can't ask Jeeves?
Good work.
Twin snakes. Fucking, you're right, Ian. You're fucking right. That's why I can't do anything here. Right, where am I going now? Orders? No, that's still that one. Can I cancel order? Yeah, because that's just going to keep popping up. Chatman, I know it's a sign of the times. Jeeves is the last bastion of hope for butlers ever. I know. Who are we going to ask from now on? Ask Cook. That's going to be the new one. And both answers will be Halo and Linkin Park. Where am I going? Let me go back down. Maybe there's something I missed.
Decontaminating suit. All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Will they even let me rest up here? Just private locker, that's it. Fuck all else. Halo and Twin Link Parks. All the way to fairness. Just say Resident Evil 6. He does love Resident Evil 6, that is true.
Have a pleasant journey.
I'm just got to make my way back down the mountain then. It's a weird one. You know that fuck isn't... You don't have to do it that way. Fuck off. It's not restricted or anything. You can say the bad words. I don't know if there's something I'm supposed to be doing over here.
Weapons restrictions lifted.
Halo? Mail received, even BTs have weak spots, right? Cool. Just like tar pit, right? So that's what they need that thing for then. Because it's going to wreck houses. I still have... I don't have the bomb, do I? No.
Beginning scan.
I'm at a loss what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure.
Check the map. One more time. Bring Mount That City onto the chiral network. Find a way to change Locke's mind.
All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Can I even shout there again?
Decontaminating suit. All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Doesn't allow me to do anything. Apart from private locker. Nope, nothing. So they find a way to change her mind. I have no idea what way I'm supposed to be doing. Could I just climb in through one of these? Wow, wow.
Beginning scan. Have a pleasant journey.
Maybe it's something to do with one of these wee houses.
Restrictions lifted.
No, nothing's flagging. Oh, there looks to be items up here. Abandoned items. Seems to go up the mountain. Ha! Specials, alloys, weather station, roboticist? Oh, the snow's quite cool on this. Hey, snow's cool. That's no joke. So, weather station. Lost Cargo Springs, right? Okay. None of these have any bearing on this, though.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked.
Lost Cargo.
All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Wonder if that's the thing, hand in Lost Cargo. Maybe that'll do it. I don't know.
Decontaminating suit. All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
The alternative, I'm just going to run down the mountain then. No, I can't drop anything off. Fuck. Can I phone her sister? Can I speak to anybody? Hello, I would like to speak to your manager, please. Hello? Cosplayer. Thomas, the elder, the craftsman, the engineer. Where's Mama? Mama. No, just bridge links. Supplies. I've never gone in this menu. And that's just it. Find a way to change Lochna's mind. Like, am I going to have to go the whole way back? Oh, why are you switching standby? Oh, the bot delivered the thing. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So I'm going to have to go the whole way back to your sister. Right, okay. Ooh, roboticist. They're on the mountain. Oh, shit, right, okay. That's going to be a bit of a trek. Alright.
Have a pleasant journey.
You know what? I think I'm just going to wrap up there. Because I've kind of had a point now where I don't know what's happening. So I'm going to have to figure this one out as well. Oh, snooze them ads as well. Fuck you, ads. Fuck you. Question for chat. If you could eat an in-game meal in real life, it would be anything from Monster Hunter Wilds. That whole bread, cheese thing is fucking phenomenal. Also, thanks for listening. Not a problem. Thanks everybody for calling on as well. I had a belter time. That was good crack. But we're going to see about raiding out to somebody now for a bit of banter and just keep it going. I'm probably going to sit up and drink some tea as well and join in on whatever chat. Who have we got? Who have we got? Let me see. Trying to see if there's anybody I haven't raided in a while or raided at all. You know what? Lazy's streaming. Lazy's quite cool. Akira's streaming. Akira's quite cool. So, oh, you know what? Teddy. Really, really good friend of the stream. Fellow handsome, bald and bearded man as well. So we're going to call him to Teddy and see what the crack is. So if you don't already know him, Teddy plays a lot of Final Fantasy 14, but lovely, lovely fella. And if you could say hello to him and drop him a wee follow, that would be much appreciated. I hope I spelled that right. Yay, I did! I'm going to drop a raid message on here as well. And I will be back on Wednesday, and we'll continue this on, and I will see you fine folks then. The Terrifier. I don't know how that sounds. But I will chat to you later, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Dreams collide.